Today we are talking about section 11.1, which deals with circumference and arc length. We've covered circumference before, so hopefully that's just a bit of a refresher, but the circumference is the distance around a circle. We can find that by taking pi times the diameter, or 2 times pi times the radius, whatever one is easier for the information that you have. Remember, if they ask you to leave it exact, you want to leave pi in your answer. If they tell you to round, go ahead and use 3.14 for pi, and that will give you a rounded answer. Arc length is just a portion of that circumference. So instead of going all the way around a circle, we're just picking a starting and stopping point and measuring the length between them on the circle. So it's just a part of the circumference. To find it, we're going to set up a proportion. That proportion is going to be the central angle over 360. That will equal the arc length over the circumference. So the central angle will tell us how much of the whole circle, 360 degrees, we're taking up, and we can use that fraction then to multiply by the circumference, and that will give us our arc length. So we're going to fill in what we know into this formula and then solve for what we don't know. Looking at a few examples. In number 17, they want us to find the arc length of AB, so how far it is from point A to point B on that circumference. They give us the central angle, 135 degrees, and they give us a diameter of 20. So filling into our formula, I always start with the central angle if I know it. That's 135. Over 360. I know that will be equal to the arc length, which is what they ask us to find. So we'll call that x over the circumference. They gave us the diameter in this case, which is 20. So divide that by 2 to get 10 when we plug it in. So 2 times 10 is 20 pi, or our circumference. Once we have everything filled in, we can cross multiply and solve for what's missing. So in this case, we need to take 135 times 20, which gives us 2,700 pi equals 360x. Trying to get x by itself, so we want to divide both sides by 360. I believe that comes out to be 7.5 pi. If that 7.5 wouldn't have come out nicely, don't round. You want to leave it exact, so we just leave it as a fraction and simplify from there. In the second problem, they ask us to find the circumference, and they gave us the arc length this time. So just be very careful of what information they gave you. We're still plugging into that same formula though. So I know the central angle is 60 degrees. Over 360 equals the arc length, which is 15. Over 2 pi r, which is the circumference. That's what we're trying to find. So I'll call the whole bottom of this C. I like to simplify this fraction over here if I can. I know that 60 over 360 is 1/6. Just makes my problem a little bit easier to work with. So that becomes 1/6 equals 15 over C. Cross multiplying, then we get C is equal to 90. In number 19, they ask us to find the radius. So we should be able to fill in everything else but the radius in this problem. So the central angle is 90 degrees over 360. That will equal the arc length, which we know is 18 pi. And then the circumference, 2 pi r. We're trying to solve for r, so we want to leave that in our problem. Again, I try to simplify these fractions if I can. That first fraction, 90 over 360, is 1/4. 18 and 2 can simplify down to leave me with 9 on top of the second fraction. The pi's will cancel out, pi divided by pi, and that leaves me with r on the bottom. Cross multiplying then, I get r is equal to 36. And the last example, once again, we want to start by filling in what we know. This time they ask us to find the angle measure, so that's what we're trying to find. So the central angle measure will be what we leave as x over 360 equals our arc length. Our arc length is 3 pi. And then they give us the diameter of 8, which would mean our radius is 4. So when I plug that in, 2 times pi times 4 in the bottom, which would give me 8 pi in the bottom. Cleaning the fractions up, we have x over 360 is equal to, once again, the pi's cancel out, so I'm just left with 3 over 8. Cross multiplying, we get 3 times 360, which would be 1080, equals 8x. Dividing 1080 by 8. Give me 135. This is the main formula that you need to focus on. We want to plug in what we know. Just be careful to read the problem, see what they gave you, and then cross multiply and solve for what you're missing. As always, if you have questions, please email or post a Flipgrid video, and we'll get back to you and work out what we can.